The Hugo Awards have been the flagship honor in science fiction. I've now read every Hugo Award winning novel from the 1970s, so which ones still hold up today and are they worth reading? 1970, The Left-Handed Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin is set in a world called Winter, whose inhabitants are humanoid, but their biological gender is fluid. Once a month they enter a phase called Kemmer, during which they become either male or female for a few days. So an individual can be both a father and mother over the course of their lifetime. The protagonist, Genly, is a male human envoy sent to Winter to persuade its people to join a wider interstellar alliance. His mission becomes complicated when he is caught between two rival nations on the brink of war. A major focus of the book is how assumptions about gender affect how we see behavior, how we often judge behavior not by what's done, but by who is doing it. Crying is one of the easiest examples for people to understand. A man crying is often seen as weak. A woman crying is usually viewed as more empathetic. The same action can be read in different ways depending on the gender lens applied. Our protagonist is male and used to gender roles, so he's not really able to decipher the politics he's a part of because he's constantly applying a gender lens, which makes him misunderstand a lot of the situations. Le Guin's depiction of cross-cultural misunderstanding is one of my favorite aspects of the novel, because when cultures collide, it's easy to misread situations, taking advice for threats and threats for advice. And then the book is interesting because while gender plays a significant role, it never feels like the center of the story. By making most of the characters genderless, Le Guin brings themes like love, friendship, and betrayal into sharper focus, so a lot of the qualities that make us all human stand out more clearly. There is a limitation. Le Guin uses he as a pronoun for all the characters instead of they or them, which just makes a lot of the characters feel a little bit more masculine. It does kind of undercut the theme of the story just a little bit. As a book I definitely recommend, though Le Guin is one of my favorite authors, so I'm definitely biased. 1971, Ringworld by Larry Nevin. Space travel is now commonplace, and humanity is no longer alone in the universe. Two alien species join our protagonist Louis Wu on an expedition to investigate the Ringworld. Both of these alien species humanity has had a bit of conflict with before, so there is some tension in the team-up. The book has plenty of twists and classic sci-fi ideas. One reveal I enjoyed is that one of the alien races has been manipulating a few things behind the scenes, and their motives are pretty interesting. That's a minor spoiler, but the race is called the Puppeteers, so it's not exactly subtle. The characters do feel a bit one-dimensional, and by far the weakest is the female protagonist. She's written as a dumb broad whose primary focus is to be a good luck charm, and of course she's repeatedly put in danger so the male characters can swoop in and save her. I was a bit disappointed. I had higher expectations since the book won the Hugo, the Nebula, and the Locus Awards. That said, the idea of a bioengineered, habitable ring world is undeniably cool. The Halo franchise took that idea and did a fantastic job expanding it. In the end, ring world is fine. The idea of the ring world is iconic, but the book itself left me a little bit underwhelmed. 1972, To Your Scattered Bodies Go by Philip Jose Farmer. Famed adventurer Sir Richard Francis Burden dies and wakes up naked beside a river. He soon discovers that everyone who has ever lived has been reincarnated along the banks of this massive winding river. Burden vows to uncover the truth behind the world and sets off on his adventure. The premise is fantastic. Every human who has ever lived is reborn and is able to interact with one another, creating endless possibilities. The book feels brutally realistic in its depiction of human behavior. People quickly form tribes, arm themselves, and fight over territory. Enslavement, murder, and worse become commonplace. And if you die in this world, you're just reborn again along another part of the river. So some groups effectively start spawn camping. They control an area of the river and then just kill and enslave anybody who's reborn there. It shows how vicious humans can be when stripped of law and shared values. At its core, it's an adventure story with a bit of an anthropological approach. You see some cultures clash and interactions between historical figures and societies. Burden himself was a real historical figure. He was one of the first Westerners to visit Mecca. It's a really fun adventure story until it isn't. The book bites off more than it can chew. I could have been happy just watching historical figures and cultures clash, but our protagonist keeps on promising he will uncover the truth about the world and why they're being reborn. And then the story ends on a cliffhanger. It's the first of 5 books, but the way it ended, I don't really have any faith that continuing the series would be satisfying. I'll look back on this book fondly because I did like the protagonist and the premise, but it's not a book I'm going to go out of my way to recommend. 1973, The Gods Themselves by Isaac Asimov. The novel is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 revolves around humanity discovering a source of seemingly unlimited energy from a parallel world. A human scientist begins to reveal that this free energy may have dangerous consequences and sets out to uncover the truth. Part 2 takes place in the parallel world and focuses on its alien inhabitants. And then Part 3 brings the focus back to humanity, neatly tying the story together and bringing the plot to a close. Parts 1 and 3 feature some well-executed hard sci-fi elements and illustrate how people often chase short-term benefits without considering the long-term costs. These parts are fine, but I just didn't find them very exciting. Part 2 is what really makes the book a classic. In a lot of sci-fi, there's a fair amount of aliens who are basically human, they just look a little bit different. Even when they're different, the focus is usually on appearance. Here, Asimov makes the aliens truly strange by exploring their biology and behavior. If you want to read about some weird aliens, highly recommend it. If maybe that doesn't interest you, then you could probably skip it, but this is considered a classic for a reason. 1974, Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. The story follows a team of astronauts exploring a massive mysterious ship. The ship's name is Rama, hence the title. The book is pretty straightforward. The characters are just there to try to understand the alien spacecraft, and that's the story. The cool thing is Clarke makes the novel feel like a detailed scientific adventure. The characters work to unravel the mystery of Rama, and they understand some features of the spacecraft while others remain unexplained. They're constantly making conjectures about how the ship might work, and that balance of discovery and uncertainty make the expedition feel realistic. The scale of the story makes humanity feel small. We're just curious observers in a vast cosmos we barely understand. And it challenges human hubris. Who are we to assume we matter on a grand scale and that we'll get all the answers? But this book never promises all the answers, so I wasn't frustrated when a lot of things are left unexplained. I think what bothered me more about the book was there was a lot of suspense and tension that built up, but I never really felt like there was a payoff, like the book never exactly capitalized on it. Some of the writing did make me laugh. One of the first descriptions of the female astronaut in space was about her body and how it was too distracting. And there are a few other lines like this as well. The characters barely have any development at all, yet the women are still objectified. I could practically hear Clarke's editor saying, it can't be a sci-fi classic unless we objectify a woman at least a little bit. Overall, I enjoyed it, but it's also one of those books where I don't think you can really hype it up and be like, oh, you have to read this, because I don't think there's this huge payoff at the end. 1975, The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. Our protagonist, Chevrek, is a physicist who grew up on a harsh moon settled by revolutionaries who rejected capitalism and private property. This society is built on ideas of equality and mutual aid. This style of living has benefits, but in practice it has become rigid, bureaucratic, and hostile to individual ambition. Chevrek travels to an extremely wealthy planet that his moon orbits to work and teach. This planet has a completely different social structure. Here, wealth, abundance, and consumerism are the norm, but there's also a lot of inequality and political repression. And as Chevrek moves between these two worlds, both physically and through memories, the novel examines the pros and cons to different structures of government. Both the planet and its moon are in a bit of a Cold War with each other, and this was written during the actual Cold War, so the story feels like a bit of an allegory for US capitalism versus Russian socialism, but it's not a one-to-one comparison. What I appreciate about Le Guin is that it does feel like she has opinions, but I never feel like she's straw-manning any particular argument. It feels like she's critical across the board and is more interested in figuring out what potential benefits can we take from a system and how we can avoid the downsides. You know, should a society prioritize individual freedom or focus on collective cohesion? What would a truly utopian society even look like, and is it possible? This is one of the books where someone asked me what I thought, I'd have to say, I don't know, I've only read it once. I will say that I never really connected with our protagonist, which makes part of the book feel drier and denser than I'm used to. It did give me an understanding of why some people might not like Le Guin's writing style. I like the book, but I'm hoping that if I do reread it in the future, it'll grow on me. 1976, The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. Humans are at war with an alien species. William Mandela is a conscript forced to fight and is sent to various planets to engage the enemy. Due to time dilation, each military tour lasts only months for him, but decades pass on Earth. The book was inspired by Haldeman's experiences in Vietnam when he fought there during the war, and it gives a realistic picture of war. Combat alienates soldiers from civilian life. Returning soldiers often feel like they don't recognize home, and then time dilation in this book is used to effectively highlight this point. The Forever War isn't anti-war, but it doesn't shy away from the brutal cost of combat, the fact that war dehumanizes a lot of people. You can always discuss war in the abstract, but for the individual, usually the focus is more on surviving. I wasn't blown away by the writing style, and the main character could have just used a little bit more personality. And the future is also depicted in some odd ways that some readers might find distasteful. I found it more humorous, though I'm not sure if that was the author's intent. The book pairs well with Heinlein's Starship Troopers, as the two are inverses in so many ways. Both feature a young soldier fighting aliens in space with advanced weaponry, yet one protagonist volunteers, the other is drafted. One war is straightforward, the other is ambiguous. Weapons in one are flawless and cool, while the other shows them as unpredictable and often dangerous. And I would say the first half of this book definitely is a one-to-one inverse with Starship Troopers, but then the second half kind of goes on its own journey. 1977, Where Late the Sweet Birds Sing by Kate Wilhelm is a post-apocalyptic story told in 3 parts, each separated by a time jump and a shift in narrator. The first part centers around an individual who believes the world is ending. He stockpiles supplies and builds facilities for his family and friends to survive the apocalypse, and the end of the world does come. So part 2 takes place at the compound, where it's revealed that the apocalypse has left most surviving humans infertile, so the surviving group is forced to turn to cloning to keep humanity alive. Part 3 centers on the clones and their increasingly uncanny behavior. As the remaining humans begin to realize what's happening, tensions grow between the clones and those who are left. A major theme of the story is individualism versus collectivism, and the book ultimately asks how far a society can or should go, prioritizing survival, even if it's at the expense of the very qualities that make us human. So is a modified clone less than a human because they are a clone? What makes us human? At what point do we become turned into something else? I love the premise, but some aspects of the cloning process didn't quite land. Some of it seemed a little rushed, where it might have made more sense with a little bit more background detail, but it kind of just came out of nowhere for me. It's not a bad book, but I just really wasn't blown away. 1978, Gateway by Frederick Pohl. The story is set in the future where humanity discovers an alien spaceport called Gateway. It's filled with thousands of mysterious spacecraft left by a long-vanished race. The ships travel along a pre-programmed route, but humans don't fully understand how they work. They just have to get on and see where they go. There are 3 possible outcomes to this: riches, nothing of importance, and death. So people sign up to figure out where the ships go, and then it typically leads to one of those 3 outcomes. The story follows Rob Broadhead and his life on Gateway. The novel alternates between his present therapy sessions with an AI therapist, where he confronts trauma and memories of his past. As the story unfolds, you see and get to learn what affected Rob so deeply. The book clearly shows us age with some references and dated therapy techniques, but I found it had aged in a more humorous direction in my opinion. And the idea of an AI therapist is really cool and relevant today. And then you just get some cool stories about what happens to the people who venture out on the alien ships. I think what put me off was that Rob is a bit of a prick, and I think my dislike of him overshadowed what I did enjoy. I love the setup of the story and the ending. I don't think the book was for me as the first in a 6-part series, but you can read it as a standalone. 1979, Dream Snake by Vonda N. McIntyre is set in a post-apocalyptic world. The novel centers around a woman named Snake who uses snakes to heal people. Some of these snakes are bred and engineered to produce vaccines and antibodies when exposed to sick people. The plot is simple. Snake, our protagonist, loses her alien dream snake while helping heal someone, and the story follows her quest to find another. Along the way, she helps downtrodden characters and must avoid being killed by dangerous foes. A pretty standard adventure story. Alien snakes, bred or engineered to produce vaccines and antibodies through their venom, is pretty fantastic and cool. Imagine an alien world where technology revolves around genetically modifying living creatures for specific purposes. I want to hear more about this. Unfortunately, the story kind of goes in a different direction and just focuses on Snake's journey. And this is more of a feminist book, which is fine, but I just kept on thinking Snake should have been given like a mission, maybe healing someone specific. I've read too many post-apocalyptic books where venturing out alone, man or woman, is kind of a death wish. At least in a typical hero's journey, the protagonist goes out with a sword. Snake, on the other hand, wanders this world, approaching random communities, telling them she can heal them with her snakes. So when her dream snake gets killed, I wasn't that surprised. I'm like, what did she expect? It's one of those books where I felt like it had a lot of potential if they just gave Snake a little bit more purpose behind her actions. So how do they stack up compared to each other? And which books do I think have held up? Left Hand of Darkness and The Dispossessed by Le Guin, I highly recommend you give at least one a try at some point. Just be aware they're pretty dense and heavy. The Gods themselves and Rendezvous with Rama don't have much character development, but if you enjoy hard sci-fi elements, they're both worth reading. To Your Scattered Bodies Go and Where Late the Sweet Bird Sing were decent. It just felt like they did not meet the potential of the story. And then I really enjoyed The Forever War, but I do think it's best read after Starship Troopers. It makes you appreciate both of the books more, and I just got a lot of enjoyment from comparing the two in my head. Ringworld, Dreamsnake, and The Gateway are the ones I didn't really enjoy. Age has not been kind to Ringworld, and my expectations were probably too high. Dreamsnake could have just used more direction in the main plot. And then Gateway, I actually think it holds up in many ways, and it's a better book than I gave it credit for. I just simply didn't like it. If I had to say which books have truly held up, ones maybe an average reader could enjoy without needing too much historical context, I'd point to these books. Books are subjective, and this is just my opinion. If you read any of these books, I'd love to hear about what you thought. Feel free to share in the comments below. I'm planning on reading all the Hugo Awards for Best Novel, and if you would like to follow along, please like and subscribe.